Hey guys, it's Ms. Marfleck here. We're going to go over limits graphically and numerically, and this is our test review. In your next lesson or our next day that we meet, you can expect to see a test on limits. This is going to be our first test for marking period 4, so it is important that you do a little bit of studying and you maybe just take a look back at those videos with limits graphically and numerically. I think this is a great topic to take a test on. I did not really want to test on the Algebra 2 review because we did go through it quickly, and it's simply, it could feel a little unfair because everybody's at maybe different levels with the Algebra 2 depending on maybe how much they were able to retain from last year. But this is a new, fresh topic, and this is calculus, and it is an important topic, and I don't think limits graphically and numerically is that difficult, and that's why we're taking a test on this material. Going forward, you can expect to see one more test, and that's going to be on limits algebraically. Limits algebraically does take a little bit longer to get through. It's not a 1 or 2 day lesson. It's maybe a 3 or 4 day lesson, and then we're going to have a test on that. Now, with our tests, with graphically and numerically, it's very easy to test on the graphically questions. It's a little tougher to test on the numerically questions, but mostly you'll be given tables to analyze, which we'll see a little bit in this video together. There's just a few notes that we need to keep in mind as we review for our test, and that's that we had our one-sided limit. When we approach from the left-hand side, you had a minus. When you approach from the right-hand side, you had a plus. So I could ask you using a table I can give you the full table and ask you what's the limit as we approach from the left? What's the limit as we approach from the right? And then we went into our two-sided limit, where if we approach from the left and right-hand side and they're equal to each other, then the limit is that number. But if we approach from the left and the right-hand side and they're not equal to each other, the limit does not exist. And then we had a quick warning, and that's sometimes the limit of f of x is not equal to that value when we evaluate it. And then that's really all of our notes for today, and we're just going to jump in and we're going to do some more practice problems together. I like this worksheet that we're going to do together because it's a little different from the last worksheet. And the last worksheet, it kind of did everything in order. So it was like left, right, two-sided limit, and then f of that number. And this is kind of mixed in together, which is something, a little bit more you can kind of expect to see on your quizzy. All right, we're going to start here with 1a, and we're going to be looking at this graph over here. So we're asked for the limit as we approach -1 from the left, -1 from the left. So I go to -1, and I'm coming from the left-hand side, I'm approaching -1, and my y value approaches 3. All right, and then now I want to evaluate f of 1. So this is not a limit. This is just algebra 1. When I plug my x in, what do I get out for y? So when I plug x in for -1, I always get out the defined. This is not an answer. This is, okay? And here, this is a defined point. So f of positive 1, not -1, positive 1 is 1. All right, and then now letter C, we want to approach 0. There's no minus or plus sign, so that means it's a two-sided limit. So I have to check. I have to approach 0 from the left, and I get my y value 0. And then when I approach 0 from the right, I get my y value 0. So since the left and the right-hand side are equal, the limit as I approach 0 exists, and it is that number, which is the y value 0. Moving on to letter D, we're going to approach positive 2 from the right. So here's positive 2. I'm coming from the right-hand side, and my y value is equal to 1. Now I want to do f of -1. This is not a limit, all right, just evaluating what's the y value at -1, and we did that one almost by accident, and that one was here. And then we have this defined point here at 1. Same thing, not a limit, all right, just defining what is my y value when my x value is 2. When my x value is 2, my y value, I don't have any filled in y values. So right here, this is undefined. All right, this is not defined, so I can't use that. And then there's no other y value when f is 2. Letter G, we're approaching -1 from the right-hand side. We're going to approach -1. We're coming from this right-hand side, coming, and we get positive 1 from the right-hand side. And then now we want to see when we approach positive 1 from the left-hand side. So here's positive 1. I'm coming from the left-hand side, and my y value is -1. And then lastly, for letter I, we are approaching 2, and then it doesn't say from the left or right, so that means do both. So I want to approach 2 from the left-hand side, and there's no function to approach 2 from the left-hand side. All right, so that side doesn't exist. So the limit as we approach 2 from the left-hand side does not exist. There's no function. But when we approach from the right, we get 1. The limit as we approach from the left and the right are not equal, so that limit does not exist. All right, moving on to number 2 here. All right, like I said, I know this can be a little complicated, but the best way to learn limits graphically is to do a lot of practice problems. We could talk all we want about these one-sided, two-sided, left-right limit and whatnot, but until we're actually doing the practice problems, this is where we're learning. So just because maybe you're a little comfortable with this does not mean to stop watching this video. We have a lot more to get through, and stay focused here. Okay, number 2, letter A. We're going to approach -3. I don't see a minus or plus, which means it's a two-sided limit. So I need to approach -3 from the left, I get 0. I need to approach -3 from the right, I get 0. My left and right hand side are equal, so the limit as x approaches -3 is that number, 0. This is not a limit, I'm just evaluating f at 1. So when x is 1, my y value is undefined. I don't have any y value when x is 1. Once again, I'm approaching x is approaching 1. So it's a two-sided limit, so I have to do both from the left and from the right-hand side. So here's 1. I'm going to approach from the left, and when I approach 1 from the left, my y value is -5. When I approach 1 from the right, my y value is -5. Both sides are equal, so my value as I approach 1 is -5. Letter D, now we have a one-sided limit. We're going to approach -2 from the right. So here's -2, and I'm coming from the right. I'm picking up this function, and as I approach -2 from the right, my y value goes up to 4. Now we're going to evaluate f of 3. My y value when x is 3, my y value is -1. And then another one-sided limit for f as x approaches -2 from the left. So here's -2. We're coming from the left-hand side, and as we get closer and closer to -2 from the left, our y value goes to 1. And then now this is a two-sided limit, so we have to approach from the left and the right-hand side. So I'm going to approach -2 from the left, which we just did as 1. We approached -2 from the right earlier, which is 4. And I could see the left and the right as we approach -2 are not equal, so that limit does not exist. All right, now we're going to do f of -2. When my x value is 2, my defined y value is equal to 3. Once again, this is not a limit, so you need a defined point there, and that defined point there is at 3. Same thing, not a limit, so when my x value is 4, my y value is 1. And then there's number 2. All right, we're halfway through this sheet. Let's take a look at number 3. We're going to approach 3 from the right-hand side. So we're now looking at this graph, and we're going to approach +3 coming from the right, and our y value is equal to 1. But then f of 3, my defined point as x is 3, I have no y value. So that is undefined or does not exist, either one. Okay, undefined u or does not exist. I think I used yes, I used a u a little bit earlier. Okay, so you could put u there. All right, and then now the limit as x approaches 0, once again, we don't have a minus or plus, so I do have to do from both sides. So as I approach 0 from the left, I get 1. As I approach the x value 0 from the right, I get 1. They're both equal, so that limit is equal to 1. Same thing, we have a two-sided limit here. As x approaches 3, we're going to do from the left and from the right. So as we approach 3, from the left we get -2, but from the right we get 1. Those are not equal, so that limit does not exist. And then what is our y value when our x value is 0? When our x is 0, our y value is 2. We have a one-sided limit here as x approaches 3 from the left. So here's 3. We're coming from the left-hand side, and we get -2. Now we're going to approach 0 from the right-hand side. Coming from the right, we're getting closer and closer to 0, and this function goes up to 1. And then now f of 1, my y value when x is 1, my y value is 0. And then we're not going to do this decimal 1 here. All right, and then here's the last one for this worksheet. Letter A, we have a one-sided limit. We're going to approach -1 from the left. All right, approaching -1, coming from the left side, we get the y value 1. Our defined y value when x is 2 is 1. And then now this is a two-sided limit. We don't have a minus or plus, which means I have to do both sides and see if they're equal. So we're going to approach 2 from the left. This one is a little confusing, okay? I can't use this function because there's no connection. It's not defined at 1.5 or 1.9, 1 point whatever. So we're using this function up here because we're getting really, really close to 2. As we get close to 2 from the left, my value is 4. And then as I get close to 2 from the right, my y value is 4. So my limit as x approaches 2 is equal to 4. That was a challenging one. All right, -1, we have to do from the left and the right-hand side. As I approach from the left, I get 1. As I approach from the right, I get 1. So that two-sided limit is equal to 1. Now, f of 4. When my x value is 4, I have no defined y value, so this is undefined or it does not exist. Letter F, we're going to approach 1 from the left. Here's 1. Coming from the left side, as we get closer and closer to 1, my y value is 1. Now we're going to approach -1 from the right. So here's -1. Coming from the right, my y value is 1. And then my y value when x is 1 is 1. And then our last is a two-sided limit. I have to do from the left and the right-hand side. So we're going to approach 4. As I come from the left, I get 2. And as I come from the right, I get 2. So that limit is equal to 2. All right, there was a lot of example problems for limits graphically, and now we're going to take a look at just 2 table examples. And this is a little bit more what you can expect to see on your test review on Quizzes, but also on your test. I'm not gonna have you build your own table because it is multiple choice. So instead, you're gonna be analyzing a table. So in like this example, so we're given this function g and it's defined over all real numbers. There's no breaks in the graph, and we're given this table values, our x and our y. And then we're asking, what is our estimate for this limit? Limit as x approaches 4 of g of x. Since I don't have a minus or a plus as I'm approaching 4, that means I have to do it from both sides. So as I approach from the left side, I get 12. As I approach from the right side, I'm getting closer and closer to 12. You could see this is where 4 would be right in the middle. And you could see 11.999 is really close to 12, and then just above 4 is really close to 12. So they're both from the left and right, we're approaching the same number, and that number is 12. Now, this could have been asked a few different ways. I could have asked you, what is the limit as x approaches 4 from the left? You give me 12. What is the limit as x approaches 4 from the right? You give me 12. And then finally, this two-sided limit. Number 2 is a little bit more interesting. We're approaching the value -10. So you can see our x's are getting closer to -10. And we're getting closer to -10 from this side. As we approach from the left, so our limit, as we approach -10 from the left-hand side of our function here is h of x. As we approach from the left, these values are getting really, really close to the value -9. And then as we approach -10 from the right-hand side of this function, our values get closer and closer and closer to -8. And then you can see from your left and your right-hand side, they are not equal, so this limit does not exist. That would be D, does not exist. All right, and then I told you this was gonna, be a quick review since we don't really have that many notes, just a lot of practice problems with the graphing. There was 2 examples of our tables. We only have 2 more to go, but this is what I want to stress is that you're not going to be creating your own tables. You're going to be analyzing tables, okay? Analyzing. And then I just want to finish off with like 2 test prep questions because I do think they're really, really good. And this is something you can expect to see as a multiple choice maybe. And which graph agrees with this statement? So we're looking for a graph where as we approach 1 from the right, we get 0. All right, so let's take a look at A. As I approach 1 from the right-hand side, I get 1. So that one's not equal. Let's take a look at B. As I approach 1 from the right, coming from the right, I get 0. That one looks good. Let's check out C. If I approach 1 from the right, I get -1, so my answer is B. Okay. Now, the limit as x approaches 1 from the left for graph B is equal to 3. And from the right, it's 0, so the limit as x approaches 1 here for graph B does not exist. Okay, so just some extra things there. All right, but I could give you a statement and maybe ask you to match it with the graph. That's getting a little bit more creative there. All right, and then here's the last one, number 4. We're looking at this graph here, and we're saying which expressions agree or which equations agree with this graph. So we're seeing which one of these is true. That's basically what I'm asking. Which one of these is true? So let's start with A and then work our way across. All right, let's see. As we approach -1 from the left, do we get 6? Okay, so let's approach -1, which is here. Let's come from the left, approach -1, and we get 2. We don't get 6, so that letter A is out. All right, let's approach 4 from the left and right hand side, and both have to be 5. So I'm going to approach 4 from the left. As I approach 4, I'm getting closer and closer to 4. From the left is 3, and from the right is 5. They're not equal, so that two-sided limit does not exist. It's not equal to 5. And then let's approach 6 from the left and the right hand side and see if we get -1. So here's 6. As I approach from the left, I get 4, and as I approach from the right, I get 4. So this answer should be 4 here. So our final answer is none of the above. None of these statements are true. All right, that was just a really quick review to go over, to go over our definitions that we should know, one-sided, two-sided, that warning, to go through some more graphically problems, to take a look at analyzing 2 tables, and then just maybe 2 test prep questions that could be worded a little different than maybe what we're used to. All right, you still need to spend some time reviewing. Do that Quizzy review. Email me if you have questions. Look up some additional resources on Khan Academy. Go out there and seek some more knowledge on limits, because you are having a test and it's not a quiz. Okay, so you really need to be emailing me if you have any questions. Get to work on your test review.